So, hello there, Catherine, and thanks for joining me.
My pleasure, Georgie.
Very kind of you to reach out because I know you feel that your
Mm.
story, and I absolutely believe this will help other people as well.
Mm.
So, shall we start with? I know you the very at the beginning, what you started with was chronic back pain, and then it
Mm.
proceeded from there to other symptoms. Do you want to start
Mm.
with an idea of what happened to you at the beginning and moving forward?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Thanks, Georgie. So when I was in high school, I was working at the checkouts at the local supermarket. And up until that point, I'd never had any health issues, never seen a physio in my life, never had any pain. And then I started getting pain during my shifts because it was lifting groceries and twisting, which is not a helpful posture. And then one day when I was 20,
Supposedly.
the pain, yeah, yes, true. Um, One day when I was 20, the pain came on and it just never went away. And that was for 9 months. So I had 24/7 back pain all over my back from my shoulders to my hips for 9 months, which
And,
is,
and if you
it's
think, I'm
young.
just going to pull you back there just for
Yep.
people listening to this, when you think about
Mm,
it in a physical way, that doesn't make
mm,
sense. If you're going to injure an area of your spine, you might have
mm.
a particular point where it would be
Yes,
painful, whereas all over doesn't make sense. And we are made to move and twist and bend and
mm,
lift. So that's much stronger than we think. But anyway, I just wanted to point that
exactly.
out.
Yes. So it was not knowing the knowledge I have now, but it was very distressing at the time. I remember
Mm.
just crying myself to sleep. I didn't know how I'd keep going with my university studies. It was very, very difficult. And it's young. When you're 20, I
Yes.
lost that feeling of invincibility very quickly that young people have.
Mm.
And then amazingly enough, the pain just I was referred to a rheumatologist who really um, showed me these mind body techniques. Although I didn't know it at the time, he just sent me to a physio who practiced Feldenkrais.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
after one session with her, I woke up a couple of days later and all the pain was gone. And it was just incredible. But then over the next almost 20 years, I just got just all these injuries, all these joint injuries,
Injuries.
hands, yes, or yeah, sort of pain that wouldn't go away, and
So basically,
it's
you
pretty.
had a session. Sorry to interrupt. I just really want to be
Mm.
clear here. Basically, you had a session that you trusted him. Or he, her. Did you say
The rheumatologist was a man. The physio was a woman. The
the
Feldenkrais
physio?
physio.
So the
Yeah.
physio, you trusted her, and whatever
Mm.
treatment she did, she helped resolve the pain. But
Mm.
what didn't happen was that you didn't learn about what this was or what you could do to deal with what was going on in your life moving forward, and that this is something you could become very self-empowered with. And I think that was the limit then, that yes, you had this wonderful recovery, which happens with when
Mm.
people read our books as well. But if they
Mm.
don't learn anything about themselves and
Mm.
what they can do, then no wonder you continue to have recurring pain. And I would suggest not injuries, but onsets of
Yes.
pain and you believe to be injuries. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Well said. So I had pain like I couldn't sit down for 4 years. I had to stand up every day at my desk doing my last 2 years of uni and my first 2 years of professional work in an office. And it was, yeah, I just had this succession of pain. I've basically named a joint. I've injured it. Some joints I've had injected. I've had surgery on my thumbs. And and then I was still actually coping with pain in my bilateral elbow pain right up when I got my second COVID infection and developed long COVID. So it was a difficult
So that was a long
season.
time
Yep.
because that
Mm.
was it
Half
2022 you got your long COVID.
Yes, November 22. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a long
Mm.
period of time and actually similar to mine
Mm.
actually, with having pain and then okay and then something else and
Yes, it was always
sometimes
something.
yes.
Yep. Mm.
Okay. So hence
Yep.
not getting to the bottom of everything why you were getting this. So no wonder you
Mm.
ended up having long COVID as well. But
Yes, I was.
lots of other
Yep.
things going on, no doubt.
Mm. Definitely. I was very frightened of long COVID, and I just thought I was vulnerable. I think because I had downloaded Curable maybe a couple of years prior, but I just didn't really engage with it much. It didn't really make much sense to me. And so when like in Australia, they ran articles in the news about long COVID, and it was sort of like, this lady who was a mountain climber, 35-year-old, got long COVID, and now she can't work, and she's got such bad brain fog she can't remember her family's names. And it just seemed like, what hope do I have? I can get vaccinated, that's fine. But what hope do I have of actually avoiding long COVID if this lady couldn't? There was no messaging about the role of the brain and how we can actually help ourselves with support
when we know how much fear is linked with all this, with all these mind-body conditions. There was so much fear around COVID time, wasn't there? And then about long COVID, and so no wonder people were so much worse then.
Yeah, my fear was like 10 out of 10, because I think what I'd grown up with, my exposure to fatigue conditions just in people I knew, was that it's a life sentence. You don't recover. So my fear about fatigue in particular was 10 out of 10. I was really, really afraid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially when we know how beliefs play such a role in this as well.
Yeah, the expectation effect book.
I love that book. Yeah, the expectation effect, beliefs, fears, everything. Yeah. It's all rolling in. You could see now, looking back, obviously, you can see why you ended up in the situation you were in.
Yes.
How did that pan out from there?
So November 2022 was my second COVID infection, and it was a stressful time. So, and I think often when people are asked about their long COVID story, it usually starts way back when. And I'd learnt through Curable that the people prone to chronic pain are people with traits like being a perfectionist, a people pleaser, and having a strong inner critic. So I knew that was part of my makeup, and I was trying to be the perfect wife, mother. We have 2 young sons with special needs. They have a lot of therapy, and we have to advocate to the government. It's called the National Disability Insurance Scheme. We have to almost like a funding grant submission every year to try and get funding for their therapies. And so I was trying to manage all that, manage a household, work part-time as a hospital chaplain at a hospital, and something had to give, and that was my health. And I remember that it was, and I was annoyed that I got COVID just before Christmas, because late November, everything's ramping up before Christmas, and I was like, I can't get sick. I just 2 weeks off work and that's it. I need to be going back to work. I don't want to miss any more shifts. And I was just putting so much pressure on myself. And our younger boy had got into this autism centre, the other side of the city, which was like a 45-minute drive, a difficult drive across the city. It's the only centre of its kind in Australia, so it's a long way to us. We're like, we can't say no to this. So we were driving him. And I was doing some of that driving, and I think that was the final, that and the COVID infection. And it's like that book where the title is When the Body Says No.
Yes, your body definitely said no.
Something had to give, and that was my health. And it was a mild infection. And then it just morphed into this incredible fatigue, dizziness, loss of appetite, very drained. I remember one day, this is by 3 weeks post-infection, so it was quite a quick onset with these symptoms. I remember being so tired, I felt like if a robber was standing above me trying to steal something, I would have just lain there. I was just so fatigued. And it got to the point where I could sit up for about 15 minutes, and then I had to lie down for 10 minutes. And that's very hard to look after a 4-year-old and 2-year-old with those symptoms. So it was very challenging. Yeah.
Wow. So how long did that go on for before you managed to find some help?
Well, amazingly enough, I got COVID, tested positive on Remembrance Day, the 11th of November. And then in early December, I spotted the Australian PoTS Foundation profiled on ABC News. And the founder, Dr. Marie-Claire Seeley, was profiled in this article talking about PoTS and long COVID. And I just read it and thought, that's what I have. Right. And so through a work connection, I knew of Claire. And so using that information, which was very fortuitous actually, so using that information in the article, I sought a diagnosis. and got medication by January I had a diagnosis and medication. So I didn't get mitoderine until about 4 months later, and that's when it got me up off the floor. We had to put a mattress topper on like a thin mattress on the tiles in the kitchen, because I was so fatigued I couldn't even like walk to the bedroom to lie down. I just had to like come out of the kitchen and just lie down on the floor. And
so the diagnoses you were given were long COVID and PoTS.
And PoTS, so that's right.
Postural orthostatic tachycardia.
Yes, that's right. So that was still, so I think when I got mitoderine, that got me up off the floor. I was able to remain upright, sitting or standing for longer. But when it was at its worst, it would take me like half the day to even empty the dishwasher, because by the time you like broke up your day into 15-minute chunks with 2 kids, it's like feed the baby in the high chair, lie down, clean the high chair, lie down, change your nappy, lie down. Like it was just so, I really needed someone at home with me actually just to help. So that was challenging. Lost 15% of my body weight just unintentionally, just because I was too tired to eat and I had no appetite anyway. I remember
you still had all that pressure on you with looking after the children.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. You're saying you remembered.
Oh, I remembered because I couldn't even say, for example, I just to give an example of what the dizziness and fatigue was like, I would rest, make a sandwich for lunch, have to rest for half an hour, come back and eat half the sandwich, and then be too tired to finish the rest because I had no appetite anyway. That's like the level. And I remember lying on the floor with on my tummy with cushions under my chin trying to eat like that, because I thought, well, I can't lie on my back and eat, I'm going to choke. So I'll try and, because I was just too dizzy to even sit in a chair and eat a meal. And there was one point where I thought, like, where's this going to end? If I actually can't eat, am I going to end up in it with a feeding tube? I'd seen patients with eating disorders admitted to the hospital I worked at, so I'd seen that. So it was worrying. Yeah. There is a glimpse, like it does get better from this. This is this is the worst, but it does get better for me.
So how long did that go on for before you started to get better?
It was probably around 4 or 5 months, I think. And then I checked in with the rheumatologist who'd been advocating this mind-body approach for me for a long time. And I said to him, can I use the mind-body approach, like curable, I should say, neuroplastic approach for PoTS and long COVID? And I thought he'd say no, because I'm thinking PoTS is, I've got medication, I've met the diagnostic criteria, all the things. And he said, you can. And I went, oh, really? That's incredible.
So again, that one little thing, hope, can make even just on its own can be huge, can't it?
So that's when I dived into curable, and when I read pain, I just inserted the word fatigue. And I got your book, and I I typed into YouTube mind body recovery long COVID, and up came Lorna Nicholson's interview with Iralee, the physio. And I watched that 2-part lecture series, and that was brilliant. And Lorna, who I've since had coaching with, actually, the SIRPA practitioner Lorna Nicholson, she's brilliant. She was the first one who I remembered, at least, telling me that in this lecture that emotions could actually trigger symptoms as well. Because up until that time, I just thought PoTS was all about posture, because it's in the name, postural, Tachycardia syndrome. And with PoTS, it's very easy to be very afraid, because I dealt with so many injuries, and, with pain and injuries, you can get a brace, you can use a TENS machine or a heat pack or an ice pack, or topical applications from the chemist, compounding medications, injection surgery. Like, you can do a whole lot with pain. But with fatigue, and particularly my main symptom with PoTS was this dizziness and like a head fuzziness, I would describe it. You can't, it's comforting when you've got like stiff shoulders, stiff neck, to put like a nice warm heat pack on and just relax. You can't do that with head dizziness. You can lie down, but I could lie down for an hour and I would still feel this pathological fatigue. And it really floored me. I had got used to adjusting my how I did daily life with these various pain pains that I'd had over the years. But fatigue literally floored me. And and because you sort of think my brain's not getting enough blood, and I sort of felt like one of those old-fashioned egg timers where the sand drips down the middle, and I just thought, it's been 10 minutes, all the blood's going to be going from my head, I need to go lie down. It just became like this self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
Wow, what an image.
Yeah, and there's really, because I could put a brace on my thumb and feel safe. My joint is protected. It's not stiff, but it's held in place by the brace from the OT, and I can get on and carry the shopping or something. But when it's head fuzziness and dizziness and fatigue, it's like the only thing I could think of was like tie a scarf around my neck so the blood stays in my head, but then it wouldn't be oxygenated again. It's just, there's no way to really make your head feel safe. My head felt very unsafe just because of that's primarily where the symptoms were. I did have that full body pathological fatigue as well at that time, but primarily the head. So it's a condition where I lived with a lot of fear. Yeah, it had a different feel to a pain in a joint or something.
Yeah, and when it's all involving the head as well, it can be hard to actually start, understanding, applying strategies.
Yeah.
So So was it that point that you started working with Lorna?
And that wasn't until actually late last year, actually, so almost 2 years on. I sort of used the resources I had, books, audio books, and I still, even though the rheumatologist had told me I could use the mind-body curable approach for this, I still didn't really believe it. And there was this one day that was a turning point for me. And I'd engaged with a fantastic exercise physiology clinic that specialised in fatigue, long COVID PoTS in Melbourne. And they'd been talking about exercise. And so I'm like, I need to go for a walk. So this one day I went for a walk, and I probably went 100 meters from my house, which is a very short. Do you use miles or kilometers in England?
Both.
Both. Okay, so you know what 100 meters is, 100 meters. So it's a very short distance from my house.
Yeah.
And because I've been telling myself I need to walk. They've told me I need to exercise. I need to do this. So it was coming from like a fear-based. I wasn't feeling safe or calm. I went for this walk because I thought I should do it. And I came home and I had to lie on the floor on the mattress, and I was there for probably 4 hours. I was so fatigued. And I just thought, hang on. Yesterday I drove to the shopping centre. I pushed a small trolley around the supermarket, got a few things, including like salt and vinegar chips, because I'd been told I could eat all this salt, which was great. And I drove home and I felt fine. How is it? I've actually walked a shorter distance today, and I've got this 4 hours of fatigue. It's my brain. I've seen this before. This is like chronic pain. My brain is playing a role here. I was afraid. And the fear had activated that fatigue circuit and ran that fatigue circuit.
Wow. And those insights are so important, aren't they? Because they're those deep aha moments, those epiphanies. I had my epiphany with Oksana's first book back in 2007, and it was like, just huge. So for your own personal recovery, I think is really important.
And I'll just give one other example, just because in case of people with PoTS watching this, there's another example that might be quite relevant. So I find, I've always found this, the whole getting dinner on, bedtime lunch boxes routine with the two children is quite stressful and can be quite challenging. And I remember this one night I was standing up in the kitchen, and the boys were just, I just said to Paul, my husband, can you please take our older boy and just take him to bed, please? And because I was feeling that head fuzziness, and I was like, I need to go lie down, but I can't lie down because I need to clean up the kitchen, and I don't have enough blood in my brain, and it's just all this, that's what was going through my head. And I'll never forget it. I continued cleaning up the kitchen, and Paul came back into the kitchen. I was standing up, and he said to me, our older boy, he's in bed now. And immediately the head fuzziness went, and I just went, hang on, I'm standing up. I'm still standing up, and that head fuzziness has gone. I thought that meant that I didn't have enough blood in my brain, but I'm standing up and I feel totally fine. How the stress had gone. So it was just he was in bed. That means that's my brain feels safe. It's turned off the head fuzziness.
Ah, interesting.
How about that? How about that? Having said that, I've always been a bit of a fainter, like low blood pressure. So, we went to a wedding maybe a year ago, and I almost fainted because we were standing up on a warm day, 30-degree day, eating canapes, and I didn't have enough to drink and I almost fainted. But the amazing thing is, I had curable. I went and lay on a couch at this wedding reception centre, and I listened to Dr. Beth Darnell, who did her PhD in pain catastrophizing, and I listened to her in my ears talk to me about pain catastrophizing. And the incredible thing was, that was as close. This was post-POTS diagnosis. This was the closest I had come to fainting since being diagnosed, aside from doing standing tests, and they're terrible. But my emotional distress at this wedding when I'd almost fainted was basically zero, because I wasn't telling myself, I'll never work again, I'll never travel again, I'll never be able to go to another wedding, this is going to be my life, it's going to be terrible, it's going to be catastrophic. I was just saying, it's a really warm day, I obviously didn't have enough to drink, I'm just going to lie here and just recover, and I'm going to be okay. This isn't the end of my life. I wasn't catastrophizing, which was amazing, because that's really easy for me to do.
Yeah.
And we had a great
repeatedly
time.
saying to yourself, well, I have a tendency for this anyway, it's no surprise.
Yes, this would have happened before I got POTS anyway, frankly.
Yeah.
And actually a guest, because it was an outdoor wedding in summer, an Australian summer, a guest actually in his 50s did pass out, had to call an ambulance, he had to go to ED and stay overnight. So it was a hot day, and I was able to not catastrophize and not have basically any emotional distress, which was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Wonderful. And then back to enjoy the wedding.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Fabulous. So it really does show how hope helps, how not catastrophizing. You've really demonstrated how fear and expectation have exacerbated symptoms that you've had. And thankfully you had curable, which helped, and like you say, all the books and things. But sometimes we do need that a little bit more, don't we? And often we don't see what we don't see, because it's like our blind spots. And that's when actually working with a practitioner can help reflect back to you. And I think that's what you found with Lorna, from what I understand.
Oh, I mean, she's sensational. A nurse practitioner who had POTS, co-founded POTS UK, and now uses the mind-body approach to help people recover. So she knows all about POTS, all about mind-body, which is a unique skill set to have. And that was brilliant. And I watched her YouTube channel with those other recovery videos of people with POTS as well. So, and there's actually a new app come out of the UK recently, which I've been using, called Free Me, FREE. It's the curable approach for ME/CFS and long COVID. And that has been brilliant. Yeah, I just saw it on Facebook and I downloaded it, and it's actually really good because it's just for fatigue. It's very specific. So I definitely recommend that.
As well.
Oh,
we'll have a look at that then, definitely.
Yeah.
And so how has life changed now?
Life is, I live with a lot less fear. It's still something I think about, but interestingly, now I don't think so much of I've got long COVID, because it's such a depressing phrase, will it be on my death certificate sort of thing. Now I describe myself, I still have POTS, I would still meet the criteria, I'm sure, for that if I had another standing test. But with long COVID, I now describe myself as that I had a stress response to an infection, and which is basically what it was. And it means that I don't need to wake up every day feeling like I'm sick, I'm broken, my body is damaged, I'm never going to recover, all of that depressing stuff. And like, I left the long COVID Facebook groups because it was very depressing, lots of medically based fear. I pretty much do. I mean, I just so love this approach. It's made such a difference. I mean, actually, amazingly enough, in using this so intensely for long COVID and POTS, because I was forced to by sheer necessity of symptoms. I had no choice really but to do this very intensely. It's actually, I don't really have pain anymore. I used to max out my private health insurance for physio every year. I saw the physio once last year, one physio appointment, and I really don't have any current pain, not injuries, but, pain areas. Pain is not something I'm bothered by anymore, which is pretty, I get occasional headaches or stiff necks or, that sort of thing, but nothing that affects my mental state particularly or my functioning.
And that's life. We're all, it sounds like you're still living quite a stressful life and having to cope with that.
Yeah.
We're all human beings with emotions, with a mind-body relationship that works together. So, it's about then you're not going into that chronic side of it because you understand it now. And it's like, certainly if I have any sensation like that at all, it's like, okay, what am I not dealing with here? And then addressing it so it doesn't become a chronic problem.
So I do something to do with this approach every day. So whether it's watching a recovery video, listening to a lecture, I watched a brilliant interview last week with Raylan Agel and Dr. Howard Schubner. Brilliant, amazing. I have actually signed up. There's a mind-body coach in the US called Rebecca Tolan, and she has a lovely program to do with fatigue. So I'm doing her live cohort program at the moment, which has been amazing. I actually bought the recordings for the 2024 conference for the Association for Treatment of Neuroplastic Symptoms. So I've been watching your lecture. I watched that yesterday about Ehlers-Danlos.
Yes.
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. From that conference. So, and there's also Nicole Sachs with her brilliant journal speak method. I watched her and Dr. Rebecca Kennedy's session on long COVID. So I'm just loving this content. I ultimately would like to work in this field. My plan is to, when I can, I think when the boys are a bit older, I'd like to train up as a mental health social worker and see patients and use this mind-body approach. And if I do that as a social worker, they'll get a government rebate for sessions with me to make it more affordable. So that is my ultimate plan. But actually, the rheumatologist actually said he wants me to become a coach in the meantime.
Excellent. Well, that sounds great. And it sounds like you've got the energy to do that, the energy and ability to do what you want now, living your life. Things aren't holding you back too much. Is that right?
Exactly. I've got so much more freedom. I can go to a movie. I used to have this quite strong noise sensitivity. I had to sit in the auditorium at church. No, I had to sit in the foyer at church because it's a very noisy music church. I had to sit in the foyer for about a year because I couldn't even go in because it was so noisy. And now I'm fine. I still wear earplugs because it's like 110 decibels. The music's very loud. But to protect my hearing, I do that. But actually, I don't get any fatigue from being in noisy environments anymore. I can go sit with a friend at a restaurant or a cafe and feel fine. I can push a trolley around the supermarket. I went on a holiday with my best friend last year, interstate to South Australia, and had a wonderful time. And we were going to wineries and cafes. We were out for like maybe 10 hours a day. Like we were doing a lot of sightseeing. And the only day that I had that pathological fatigue is the day that we had an argument. And isn't that something? So we were doing all of this activity, cafes, restaurants, and I was fine.
Neural pathways are just there lying dormant, but when we look after ourselves and, having fun, playing, social activities are so important for us. But that's great. So you have that fatigue, but then it's like, okay, you understand it, and then you can work with that. So, it sounds like you've done lots of learning and reading, and presumably alongside that, you've integrated some of the self-care practices. And of those, what would you say you found most helpful?
So do you mean in terms of hobbies or do you mean in terms of like mind-body practices?
More that for many people, they can learn and learn all about this. And for some people, that learning and understanding means, and resolving the fear means that the symptoms just disappear. For many others, I get approached by lots of people who say, I've done all the programs, I've read the books, I've done this, I've learned it, I know everything there is about this. Is it worth doing your program? And I actually would often say, no, I would suggest not. Because it feels like when it comes down to it, it's like they're in the head, very academically understanding it all. And this is not a conscious academic approach, really. It's, yes, we need to understand, we need to learn, but then it's about, okay, down into the body and somatically really being able to build our felt sense and understand, be able to offload how we're feeling, maybe through journaling. Some people meditate. So there's lots of things that people will do, even if it's just taking themselves off on their own for a walk every day. And I just wondered, what did you find most helpful for you?
Yeah, great question. So I, in the Curable app, they have a brain training section with Alan Gordon doing these somatic tracking exercises. And honestly, I can just hear his voice and I just relax like that now. So I do a lot of those. It's so, like Dr. Howard Schubiner calls it, the 5 Fs of, if when you've got a symptom, you're focusing on it, trying to fix it, getting frustrated with it. And I've momentarily forgotten the other two. Fear. Yes. Whereas this somatic tracking approach is more like sitting with the symptoms through a lens of curiosity and compassion and a sense of safety. And this is, I should say, when a doctor has ruled out ongoing structural problems and tissue damage, structural issues.
But you found that helpful yourself.
The somatic tracking has been brilliant. Journal Speak Journal Speak by Nicole Sachs provided me the first glimmer of hope. That's when I first got the first little bit of relief from symptoms. And I was too tired to sit up and handwrite. I would actually just lie down and dictate. I would lie down under a tree in the garden, and I'll just dictate into like a journal app on my phone. And that, just to get there was so much fear. There was so much, what if I lose my job? What if, I did end up, I was forced to resign from my job, but amazingly enough, I'd already realized I was happier not working anyway. And when I did send on that resignation letter, I actually felt a lot better. Mentally, physically, that load was off. I didn't have that uncertainty of, am I well enough to go back? Am I not? And I'm actually happier not working in this season with 2 children with special needs, young children. I'm happier not working. So, so the somatic tracking, the journaling, listening. I'd probably listen to a recovery story probably every other day. Not every day. Sometimes I just want to watch a movie and just forget about all this. But probably every other day I'd watch a recovery video or a lecture of some kind. Yes. And also just hobbies, just incorporating joy again. So I've got into hobbies like learning German because my husband has German heritage. I've started learning the recorder, which is what we did in primary school, but they make really like big ones. I'm actually waiting. So learning music again. I'm drawing and colouring again, and just giving myself more self-compassion rather than the perfectionist. I need to get this done. I need to finish this job. It's like, it's fine. I can do what I can today and I'll finish it tomorrow.
That's wonderful to hear. Because as we know, that helps remove the focus from the symptoms apart from anything else. But, play, joy, fun, socialising is so important. So I just wondered when you were talking about, trying so hard and reading everything and, what were you actually doing from what you'd learned? And that's explained it beautifully. So thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your story, Catherine. I have no doubt this will help so many people. And we'll definitely be sharing it.
Yeah, thank you for all that you do with your organisation. It's lovely. I remember I was talking to Lorna and I said that SIRPA is like curable with a British accent. I love the British accent. I lived in the UK for a year when I was a child, so it's lovely to to hear that accent. And it's just brilliant what you're doing. I think there's so much more, as you'd seen through your physio work, there's so much more to someone's pain than just a structural problem or whatever else is going on. There are so many other factors at play when it comes to pain and fatigue and other symptoms like that.
And loads of other symptoms. And thankfully, all these years down the line, more and more people are doing this, more and more people are understanding it and sharing the word, and change is happening. Slowly but surely, we're getting there.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you so much, Catherine. I really appreciate it. And all the best.
My pleasure. You too. Thanks, Lorna. Okay, bye.
Just going.